Okay, guys, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee, and I'm gonna update the live stream and check on it right away, and then we'll get going. Give people a chance to come in. Looks like we got sound and picture. Okay, today we're going to go through the dynamics of the wars that Israel has, which is predominantly with Gaza, Hamas, Lebanon, Hezbollah, and to a significantly lesser extent the Houthis in Yemen, and to an even lesser extent the militias in Syria and Iraq and Iran. But Iran is really the kingpin underlying all this. So let's do our praise, being a Bible-believing site. I will do some praise, and if you're a true believer and you want to join in, that's up to you. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so this is the dynamics of what's happening now. Biden in the UN. Algeria, I believe, filed something with the UN Security Council to impose a forced ceasefire on Israel with Hamas in Gaza. Biden vetoed that. Now, that did not, as far as my memory serves me, and I believe I'm right, that did not call for the Houthis to return all the hostages as a condition of said ceasefire. Biden's proposal does, and he's going to introduce that, or so he said a day or two ago. I think he said it on Monday. Today's Wednesday. So what his peace ceasefire proposes is Hamas returns all the hostages, and there's a ceasefire ordered by the UN Security Council, which would probably involve putting troops from various UN countries, including America, into Gaza to enforce it. Now, this is nonsense because there are UN troops, UNFIL, is what it's called, in Lebanon, and the Hezbollah were launching missiles and rockets into Israel 25 meters away from the UNFIL location, using them as a human shield. So that stopped eventually. So the troops, the UNFIL wouldn't do a thing to Hezbollah. Now, what if they do that in Gaza? What would Israel do? Good question. If they just wrote a piece of paper, they would say they can't stop, because as soon as they stop, Hamas is going to shoot missiles, and they still have our hostages and stuff like that. So Biden is on a road like this. One branch of the road is he wants a ceasefire so nobody wins this war, which is the Henry Kissinger policy. Demonic. So if Hamas returns all the hostages, then they can't run around saying they won the war. Okay, if Israel gets all the hostages back, there's a thought that they'll shut up, and the ceasefire would be for something like 6 to 12 weeks. And they're going to scream, we can't stop, because Hamas is going to keep building more rockets, and in 5 or 10 days we'll get rocket barrages again, which is the truth. So then they might say, try it, and if they break the ceasefire, you're free to go in and attack. Remember I told you a few weeks ago, I have a feeling there's going to be some sort of a temporary ceasefire going on? I think there will. It's not real. It's not going to hold up. But before we get to what happens when who breaks what ceasefire, we need to understand that there's people saying that a lot of the key players in Hamas have escaped into Egypt through tunnels. This, I believe, could very likely be the truth. I don't have any reason to believe that it's not the truth. There's other people that say it's not true. Well, I don't know how they know that. Okay, now, it could be true or not true. The bottom line is I don't know. And I don't think we really know. Does Israeli intelligence know? Maybe not even them. How would we know? Egypt is our enemy. Their role is to make it look like they're our friend. And they allowed all the smuggling of the equipment into Gaza to build all the tunnels 300 miles worth, which must have been thousands and thousands of tractor-trailer truckloads. Plus all those weapons. I think at the onset of the war, we figured they had about 15,000 missiles and rockets. That's a massive amount of raw materials to build and assemble those rockets, plus the machinery required and all this, and machinery to make the tunnel, dig the tunnel. These tunnels are almost 100 feet deep. Guys, Egypt is extremely complicit. Now, Biden may not say so, Netanyahu might not say so, but Jehovah will hold them complicit, believe me. Okay? Now, they're murderers after the fact, or maybe before the fact, I don't know. Conspiracy to commit murder. They were the enablers. Without that, it wouldn't have worked. Before Egypt was letting them do this, Turkey wanted to break our naval blockade and push ships in. You might remember that a few years ago, and open up the harbor so they could get weapons to Hamas. And then all of a sudden that stopped because Egypt picked it up. That's why it stopped. All right. So know and understand Egypt is in this up to their eyeballs, okay? Now, if the hostages are in Egypt, they may move them from Egypt to an Iranian jet plane that lands in Egypt, put them on there, and take them to Iran. They could take them to Iraq, maybe, or Syria, but the safest place to bring them would not be Lebanon. It would be Turkey or Iran. And Turkey may say, this is too iffy for me. I'm still making believe I'm a friend of the West, so he may not do that. So they may bring him into Iran. So if they got the hostages in Egypt, what Hamas will say is, we don't know where the hostages are. We don't have them. And then Biden's initial belly aching was he wanted to put American troops in there to enforce the ceasefire and to look for the hostages. What a joke. They're going to give Biden the hostages? Why? They're going to actually do a ceasefire? What they'll do? What would he put in there in terms of troops? Maybe 10,000, 5,000, 3,000? Nothing meaningful. Would Hamas shoot at the American soldiers? Yes, under conditions. So there's a ceasefire. They could run around freely out of the tunnels above ground. They have smuggling from Egypt that hasn't been stopped. Netanyahu, the piece of garbage, hasn't stopped it. There was talk of putting an underground wall in there to stop the tunnels. You could still do it. He hasn't done it. He could do it. He hasn't done it. Did I say he hasn't done it? He hasn't done it. Egypt doesn't want him to do it. And he could care less about Israel. You think he's for God? Come on. He's straight up for the unclean spirits. That's what he is. Every government in the world, of every country, is that way, or they would have been overthrown a long time ago and replaced by a government that is demonic. So no matter what happens with this ceasefire, it's not going to amount to anything. Hamas will test America, launch 50 missiles from Gaza, and then Israel has to return fire, and they'll be afraid to do it because of the Americans. They'll scream at the Americans, and the Americans will scream at Hamas, and this will go on for 3 or 4 cycles. And then Biden will have to tell the Israelis to go in and retaliate. Unless he has a plan to prevent Israel from emerging as a winner, of him putting 25,000 or 40,000 soldiers in there and they retaliate, I think the chances of that are pretty slight. So yes, there likely can be a ceasefire with Hamas, and yes, it's a joke. It won't last, okay? It might not last 3 or 4 days. It might not last a week, okay? What they're going to do if they put soldiers in there, UN soldiers, American, both, one or the other, they're going to get some headquarter buildings inside Gaza in different locations where they're going to have offices and communications, and they'll probably have some armored vehicles and some tanks, and they'll put troops up on the borders with Israel, and Hamas will work around them. And even while we were occupying Gaza, to maybe 100,000 soldiers or a high amount, they were still shooting missiles at us daily. It's stopped for a few weeks now, but they were doing barrages 2, 3, 4 times a day. So they'll dance circles around the UN and American troops. And I don't think they'll fire on them. If they try to apprehend the Hamas that launched these missiles, they'll come under fire from Hamas. So the bottom line is, this is another harebrained idea from Biden, and it's stupid. But it hurts Israel. And it saves Hamas from annihilation and leaves them around to play another day. But Israel is not going to be on board with this. If the UN passes said resolution and decides they're going to bring troops and trucks and tanks and everything it'll take them 1 or 2 months, and the ceasefire will be broken way before then. So don't think there's really anything serious that's going to happen with these out of control Hamas people. It's not. They defy America. Look at the Houthis. I mean, they even shoot at the American ships. You'll see similar things with Hamas. Let me look at the chat and see what kind of garbage we're collecting, if any. We're not. Or are we? Let's see. I don't know what's happening. Take the live stream and check on it right away. And then we'll get going. Give people a chance to come in. Looks like we got sound and picture. All right, I got some questions. Let's see what we got here. Evidence that the hostages are still alive? No, there's none. We don't know how many. I mean, the high side is approximately 100. And the low side is 0. We really don't know. They're estimating, based on the remains of people they found from the October 7th massacre, running the DNA on the remaining body parts. But they're still doing that all the time. There's so many bodies. And they deducting the hostages that were returned. And they take the missing persons count from October 7th, deduct the hostages that were returned, the other hostages whose bodies have been identified inside Gaza or inside Israel, and they come up with that figure. But it could be perhaps 1/4 of that, or 1/10 of that, or nothing. Hamas's position will be, we don't know where the hostages are. And then what's Biden and the UN going to do? Oh, you don't have any hostages? Okay, we'll do a ceasefire anyway. You see, all the nations of the world are against us. So what's really going on? Iran is funding and backing the Houthi rebels in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, and Hezbollah in Lebanon, and various militia groups that are very large in number. I heard in Iraq there were almost 250,000, and Syria. And he also backs Syria, and he controls Iraq and backs Iraq. This is Iran. So Syria and Iraq are not really full proxies of Iran. Iran exerts tremendous control over these countries, but they're real countries with civilian populations, industry, exports, imports, commerce, economy. They can't really operate like a straight up terrorist operation like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. See, Hezbollah and the Houthis refrain from actually being a government. They don't want to bother themselves with public works, roads, electricity, ports, imports, exports, taxes. They just operate to kill Israel. And Hamas took over the so-called, what would you call it, administration or government role in Gaza because there was nobody else. But they say things like, oh, the people don't have food, they don't have money, let the UN take care of them. They don't take care of them. They're stealing the UNWRA aid and aid from other nations that comes into Gaza. That's in the form of food, medical equipment, medical supply, cooking fuel, and other fuel. And I think the other fuel has stopped. It's just propane cooking fuel. I don't think they're doing any petrol for cars and trucks anymore. They were, but I think it's stopped. Hamas steals it, and we have it on film. They shoot at the people. They warn them with warning shots. They hit them. They beat them. The people attack the trucks coming into Gaza before they get inside to the UNWRA warehouses because Hamas is there and just takes it all for themselves. And they put it in the stores that sell it to the people at inflated prices. Which the people can't afford because they don't have any work. So, then Hamas turns around and screams genocide. Then other countries go that they're starving. Then other countries go to the UN and say genocide, we're starving them out. It's a sham. Now, Israel just hit the Iranian natural gas pipeline a few days ago. Broke it in 2 places and shut them down. Iran says they have it up and running again, but they lie about everything and anything. So you can't sit and count. You can't listen to anything that Iran says. It's just nonsense. So, what's going on? Iran is very much afraid that Israel's going to take 40 or 50 or 75 jets that are stealth, F-35s and stealthy F-16s. Which they apparently have no ability to stop, as evidenced by the attack on the pipeline. They'll never admit that. They want you to think that they're, a number one world power. So if Israel goes into Iran and starts blowing them up seriously, the idea would be to get Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis in Yemen to go after, and the Iraqi militias in Syria and Iraq to go after Israel full house. So that is how Iran is able to keep Israel in check. But Iran is losing its control. The Hamas is defunct already. Once we go into Rafah, they have 2 or 3 battalions of Hamas left down there and a lot of civilians. once we go in a matter of days, and we've already started probing in there, in a matter of days, Hamas will be completely defunct. Right now, their missile launching capabilities against Israel is down by, I would say, a good 99%, 99.5%, almost 100%. So their threat level to Israel is rather low. When we dismantle Rafah, the Israeli idea is we create a buffer zone, a no man's land inside Gaza to stop any ground incursions. We keep a certain amount of our military inside Gaza, which would probably be, in the beginning, at least 25 to 50,000 people. And that would be with tanks, armored personnel carriers, lots of helicopters overhead, drones overhead. Our Shin Bet would have hundreds of operatives in there. Shin Bet's like the FBI. Military intelligence would be very active. We'd have a lot of informants. We'd install cameras at key locations and have people monitoring the cameras. We would take control of the media. There would be no radio or television preaching propaganda. There would be no propaganda in the UNWRA schools like there has been. And if they smuggle stuff in from Egypt, what are they going to do with it? So Netanyahu was saying, or Israel really, not him, they're saying, go, let them smuggle stuff in from Egypt. What are they going to do with it? We're going to hear and see them digging tunnels and moving trucks of concrete around. We'll have checkpoints all over Gaza with soldiers in uniform. And they'll look inside trucks. Maybe not every truck, but they'll spot check the trucks. And as soon as they find this kind of stuff, the guys are going to go into pretty serious interrogation, and they'll give up what's going on, where they got it, who told them to get it, where it's going, and then our special forces will apprehend. We'll find the warehouses and confiscate everything, and that's it. And then Egypt could send more the next day and the day after that, and the same thing will happen. They can't do anything with the smuggled goods. What are they going to do? You can't just go dig tunnels 100 feet deep when you're occupied and get away with it. It's just not going to work. We've had a terribly complicated and intense, deep education on tunnels. So our knowledge must have increased by tenfold. So they're not going to get away with tunnels. They're not going to get away with much of anything. They could have the stuff smuggled in, but what do they do with it after it's in? They're at a stalemate. They can't do anything. The country's significantly occupied by us. I don't pay attention to the Book of Enoch. If you go to the internet and study this, you'll find out many people have shown you contradictions in the Book of Enoch with the Book of Enoch. Now, there's different books of Enoch. It's worse than that. Probably the one that people consider the most authentic, and I don't consider it to be Bible, is from 1913. The guy's name, I think, was Charlesworth. It was published by Oxford in 1913. The other version came, I think, in the 80s and 90s, and that's a real joke. And there might be a third or a fourth that I'm not aware of. Not only does it contradict the Bible, it contradicts its own book. So it's obviously God's not an author of confusion and contradiction. It's junk. I just wouldn't pay attention to it. That's it. I've read it quite a few times. It's really interesting, and you think that it's real, but it's giving you new insights into things. It's not correct. It's a waste of your time, and it's going to mess your doctrine up too. So it's best not to mess with the Book of Enoch. It says in, I think, James, Enoch prophesied, but it didn't say Enoch wrote a 75-page book. You know, he gave one prophecy, that was it. Right? That doesn't mean he wrote a 75-page book. Okay. So let's massage this around with the wars in Israel. Okay. Let's say Israel goes in, which is still very likely, and neutralizes Hamas, and then occupies, continues to purge Hamas, make sure they don't accumulate or acquire any weapons or build new tunnels, which is, they're definitely going to do these things. Hamas has now become worthless to Iran. Okay? Now, when this happens, what does Lebanon do? Well, see, here's the analysis on Lebanon. People that are knowledgeable think that counting the reserves and the regulars in the Hezbollah army in Lebanon, they're only at 50,000. Some people think up to 100, 130,000. I was going to say, if you want to do a compromise, maybe they're at 75,000, but they may not be. Okay? Hezbollah has no aircraft to speak of other than their drones. They have no navy to speak of. They don't have any armor to speak of. So they talk like they're a big power, like America, the UK, France, Russia, China, India. They're not. They're a ragtag terrorist state that has backyard-built missiles, mostly. And all they can do is wage war against their neighbors. That's it. That's not an almighty, powerful country. It's a terrorist state. That's all it is. Now, the downside with that is if they really decide to open up on us, and open up on us could look like 3,000 missiles a day, and that might conceivably continue for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, equaling the amount of missiles Hamas shot at us in perhaps 6 or 8 weeks. But can they? And do they want to sustain Netanyahu probably assigning 150 jets, probably in groups of 25, to go all day and all night, bombing different strategic locations in Lebanon, ruining their water, electric, telephone, internet, highways, ports, everything. Okay? Ruining everything. In return for some missile bursts into the big cities of Israel. Do they really want to do that? I don't think they do. Now, Hamas is close to defunct. With Lebanon, what Israel wants to do is have Hezbollah move back 17 to 18 miles from our border to the Litani River, which is a 2006 UN resolution that they should be there north of the Litani. That would stop the vast majority of the rockets that Hezbollah has from hitting It wouldn't stop all of them. I'm sure many of them could go 40, 50, even 60 miles. I don't doubt that. So they could hit, Haifa, Tel Aviv, Nahariya, the border cities, Metula, Kiryat Shmona, Tiberias, and other places. For how long, though? See, Lebanon's a few-minute flight from our air bases, and some of our air bases are underground, so they're not going to take missile attacks and suffer damages, especially from the likes of Hezbollah. So they drop their ordnance, they shoot their rockets, they drop their bombs, they turn around, they come back to the appropriate Israel air base, of which we have several. They're refueled, they're rearmed. That probably is going to take 45 minutes to an hour. The pilot gets out, goes to the bathroom, gets debriefed on what his activity that he's returning from produced. They take the footage from the video cameras in the plane and offload it. The guy gets to eat, go to the bathroom, take a shower. Some of the pilots are women. And then maybe 45 minutes, an hour later, something like that, he's ready to go. He goes back, and the flight time is maybe 5 to 7 or 8 minutes. It's not 9 minutes or something. It's nothing. He flies back, hits his target package, returns home again, and, maybe he's, by the time he flies up there, hits his target's package and come back 35, 45 minutes. Then he or she, gets some coffee, makes a phone call, takes a shower if they want, go to the bathroom if they want, take a walk, unwind, go for debriefing, go for briefing. Debriefing is when a pilot comes back from a mission. As soon as the pilot gets off the plane, he reports to intelligence, Air Force or general military intelligence. And while it's extremely fresh in his mind, they ask him about what kind of counterattacks, missiles, jets, whatever. Of course, with Hezbollah, none of that. It's going to be significant. What did you hit? What did it look like for you? How risky was it? And, things like that right away. And then when he's finished with that, then he's, it takes 5 or 10 minutes. They ask him questions, and maybe he's drinking coffee during that or smoking a cigarette if that's their desire. And then the pilot's free. Now, after the pilot does 2, 3, 4 runs, they probably give him the day off and they use another pilot. But, if they take 6 or even 7 groups of 25 and keep rotating them, I mean, the amount of damage. The amount of damage would be devastating to Lebanon in 2 or 3 days. So Lebanon gets to blow up some of our cities because it's going to take time for us to wipe everything they have out. We're concentrating now on hitting points in South Lebanon near our border. We're hitting all kinds of things. Military housing compounds, bases, weapons storage, observation posts, radar, anything that looks military. We've been bombing it aggressively day and night. So the idea, and we've driven the civilians out of this area too. So there are no human hostage issues going on like in Gaza. They can't exactly do that because they're not the government of Lebanon. Hamas is the government of Gaza. So they've driven the people back so they don't have to, in Lebanon, so they don't have to worry about genocide, killing civilians. Got it? And now they're just wiping out anything. They find a missile launcher, suspicious this, anything. Yeah, get rid of it. Okay? Now, this has been going on for weeks and it's continuing at a pretty high clip. So this would be what you would do before you roll the tanks in to occupy. So Israel is prepping to occupy South Lebanon. The nations are not happy. Iran's not happy because it appears Israel's waiting to neutralize Hamas and then go and do Lebanon and neutralize Lebanon as a threat. The Houthis right now are not much of a threat. They're not able to come up by naval vessel and raid Israel. Forget it. They don't have, forget that. Our boats, our ships, destroy them. They could attempt to get Saudi Arabia to let them traverse through the territory and come up by land, by a lot, and try to invade us. They could try to, that's not likely to happen, and we would blow them up on the way. And we would tell Saudi Arabia we're holding them responsible for this, and we could just at will fly in and blow up every oil refinery in Saudi Arabia and every oil field and every Saudi palace and silver-plated Rolls Royce and everything else. And those guys are not warriors, they're goofballs, They're espots, they're not real Muslims, they just go through the motions of that. So, they don't want that. In their mind, he who dies with the most toys wins. They don't want to see that. So, the Houthis are a threat to shipping. And Israel's taken a posture of let the nations deal with the shipping problem. Now the EU is immediately, whatever immediately means, it doesn't mean in a month, it means quick, are deploying a military force to deal with the Houthi threat. Well, you see, it's probably going to involve aircraft in some way, shape, or form. That could mean they're going to have somebody with aircraft carriers cooperate with them. Or they need to strike a deal with some country in the area of the Red Sea and Yemen to fly out of their bases. Who that would be escapes me. I don't know who it would be. I don't know. So the way it'll start is they'll send warships there and they'll protect vessels in the Red Sea and the Sea of Aden, and they'll also, defend with anti-missile missiles, and they'll shoot their own missiles and rockets at the Houthis. Now they're going to be a wild card. They're not cooperating with anybody. They're not working with the UN, they're not working with NATO, they're not working with America, they're not working with India, they're not working with anybody, just the EU. And and it's being done on an EU level, not an individual country level. Now, Denmark is working with the United States, but they're just putting one warship in. It's rather insignificant. Thinking. So they're going to do what they want with their warships. Now, Iran has one warship in the Red Sea. It's probably 350, 400 feet. And it's common knowledge that they're using this because the Americans in the UK have destroyed the Houthi radar near the coast. So they're using this as their eyes and ears. So the Iranian ship picks up foreign vessel, okay, gets on the horn with the Houthis, gives them the GPS coordinates of said maritime vessel that is being targeted and what the direction of motion is and the speed, and keeps updating them, plotting the course of this ship. The Houthis then launch a drone or a missile, which the Iranian ship takes control over because they're basically Iranian drones and Iranian missiles. And the Iranian warship directs and guides them into the target. America is not stopping this practice that I can detect. They just hit a ship yesterday with 2 missiles, and this ship continued on its merry way. It didn't have to stop. In another situation, they hit a ship with some missiles, and their boats came and they forced the crew to evacuate from safety. Now, does evacuate from safety mean evacuate from safety? That they didn't want to see a delayed explosion of the boat and the crew get killed and they get blamed for that? Or did they take them hostage? I think it's obvious they took them hostage. Maybe not. Maybe they'll release them. We'll see. Probably not, but we'll see. Now comes India. India by now has 12 or at least 10 warships in the Red Sea area. India is not working with the UN, nor NATO, nor America, nor the UK, nor anybody. They're on their own. They're running their own campaign in the Red Sea also. So you have the American coalition campaign, which is predominantly America and the UK, soon to be Denmark, that's it. Okay? You've got India running their own campaign, and the EU is going to be running their own campaign. It looks pretty stupid, doesn't it? Things are going to get pretty crowded over there. Now, will anybody, the reason the ships are being hit is because of this one Iranian warship, which cannot defend itself against any of these serious powers. Now, are there any plans to take it out? None that I see. If somebody blows up this Iranian warship, it's over. The Red Sea's going to open back up. Now, is America going to do that? Oh, no. UK? Oh, no. Denmark? Oh, no. Will India do it? Yeah. Will the EU do it? 50%, maybe 75%. If they don't do it, this whole thing is going to replicate itself with Morocco and Algiers and the Straits of Gibraltar. They're going to block the Mediterranean Ocean from the Atlantic, which is going to be economically devastating to Europe. And the Red Sea, in the Persian Gulf rather, Iran's going to start interdicting ships. And outside of it, into the Sea of Oman, the same. It's a mess, okay? It's such a mess, it's unbelievable, okay? And nobody seems to know what to do anymore. Remember I told you there'd be so many twists and turns in these days because they don't know what to do. They're disorganized, they're not working in unity. Now it gets worse. India has had shooting wars off and on in the last 2 or 3 years with China in the Himalaya Mountains up 14,000 feet. They call it a LAC line or something, a borderline. China comes along and says, this is really our territory, we're taking it back. Modi, for some reason, let it go, and they built big military bases, compounds, fortifications that would be hard to take out, thick concrete buildings and whatnot. Who knows how much underground they put in. And they are occupying it with troops, and it's India's territory in the eyes of India. So now, very recently, the last hours or days, India is building up a big military force at that borderline inside India, obviously with the plans of taking it back. Now, Iran is an ally of China, and Pakistan is an ally of China too. And Pakistan is on the border with India. So that's the knife in India's back, sticking in the back, that China uses, is Pakistan. Pakistan could try to con people in the same way that the Hezbollah and the Houthis and all of them, it's just a con job, India is a big, mighty force that would be difficult for China to reckon with. If there was such a war, India versus China, there probably would be no winner. They would basically destroy each other. This could be where we're headed. I'm going to take a break, come back, and we'll continue. what I'm seeing here, of course, China's an ally of Russia, who's in Syria. China's an ally of Iran. And China, I didn't bring this up yet, but I will right now. China has a bunch of warships in the Red Sea, Sea of Aden, and stuff like that. Now, they're not stopping the Houthis. What they're doing, in my opinion, is they're observing the actions of America, the UK, India, and everybody else who's got ships down there. They're observing how their anti-missile missiles work. They're getting the radar signals. They're learning about them. Okay? They're also watching what the Houthis are using, but they have little interest in that. And they're watching America's radar jamming and stuff like that. Are they helping the Iranians with their ships by picking up GPS coordinates and guiding missiles into boats and stuff? I doubt it. I don't think they want to get themselves exposed. When it comes to things like war, the Chinese trust nobody. They have allies, but they don't trust them. Of all the big countries, they're super duper cautious. And they're super duper scared, and they'll stab their allies in the back in a minute by abandoning them. So they're in the Middle East, and I think God doesn't want him in the Middle East. This is me talking. So they've got a big threat that's not much of a threat, but it's still a threat in the Pacific regarding North Korea fighting South Korea, regarding Japan joining in against North Korea. Then they got to worry about Taiwan and Japan helping Taiwan. Then they got to worry about Australia helping Taiwan and South Korea. And they got a problem with the Philippines. They want to use it and they can't. And America's back with the Philippines. And they got the man-made islands that America's screaming and yelling about. Now, America's working the snare with them. But anything could happen in the eyes of the Chinese, okay? Biden could have all of a sudden political aspirations he needs to deal with. He may be under threat of revolution, and he has to make it look good, military revolution. So he go to work in the Pacific and throws China under the bus to keep his control or whatever. They don't trust anybody. So they're worried about this. Okay? They're worried. Now going into the Middle East, that doesn't worry them. What are the chances of Israel going to China and invading them? Like 0. But India got a common border with them. India is the same, roughly, they're both 1.5 billion people. China's economy is in the toilet. It's not in the toilet, it's under the toilet. That's dangerous for a bunch of commie dictators. And India is not that bad off. And India has a very large military, like China, aircraft carriers and the whole bit. And they can fight. Okay, they're not a Muslim majority country. They got a lot of Muslims, but China is not likely to be able to mobilize the Muslims in India to make life uncomfortable for Modi. That's just not going to happen. So now China has to ask themselves some questions. Do they really want to be in the Middle East now? They're here. They got a bunch of ships in the Red Sea. Do they really want to make a move here to help Iran? We caught Chinese guys in the tunnels in Gaza. I saw pictures of them. I think there was 3 or 4. They were Chinese military. In America, you've had 20,000 Chinese guys come in I don't know, the last year or two that they know about. But this is just interdictions. This is just those people that come in and they get picked up by Border Patrol and then they plead amnesty or something like that. How many came in through Canada, through the oceans? They come in through San Diego and stuff like that. So now you're going to tell me they don't come in through Oregon and Washington State? Why would you tell me that? Why would I believe that? And they come in through Florida. So there could be 60 or 80,000 Chinese in America. So they're obviously, we know that they're going to be involved. I mean, it's a logical assumption they'll be involved in the attack on Daughter of Babylon. So do they really want to brew up something in the Middle East? No, I don't think so. Do they really want to get into it with India right now? No, they don't. They know they're going to hit America, and they know they got to protect themselves in the Pacific, their own backyard. The Middle East is of no interest to them right now. Why? I mean, they're not, unless Satan's pushing them that way, they're not all that capable. It's far away. And they may have to help bail Russia out when Russia starts attacking European countries, which he probably will do, or he may not do. He may just be saving himself to go attack America, but he will. And he's going to take a poke at the UK because he hates them. So China is probably going to pull their horns in on the Middle East, I think. And with India, they're just going to continue the stalemate until Modi says he's had enough and tries to take them out, which will happen. Pakistan maybe can be deployed over there. Now, Azerbaijan and Armenia are very close to fighting again. Armenia is an ally of Iran. Azerbaijan is an ally of Israel. It gets thick, doesn't it? So Israel can Israel give weapons to Azerbaijan right now? Unlikely, because we got our hands full with war. Military advisors is probably possible, but that's about it. So that might be a problem for Iran too, because they're going to have to back Armenia. See, I told you there'll be twists and turns all over the place here, you know. Afghanistan, the Taliban are quite possibly going to rise up and hit Iran. Now, they don't have the military might of Iran, but I don't believe the Iranian military is as gung-ho lunatic nutbags like Hamas and Hezbollah. I don't believe it. Taliban, yes. And I think the Taliban could cause significant damage to the nation of Iran. Now, Netanyahu hates Iran. If you want to put down who's the number one, that plane's ours is moving slow. It's just patrolling. If he wants to hit, you live here, you learn these things. It's probably an F-16. F-35 sound completely different. They really much louder and deeper. Okay, so if he louder, of course, is a function of altitude. So Hamas, let's say Hamas is dead. We go into the Rafah crossing. Hamas is basically not an issue anymore. They're no threat to us. And then we have a big fight with Hezbollah, and then we take Hezbollah's capabilities away, and they're down by 65-75%. Iran loses their proxy strength against Israel. And Israel will go in and make bombing raids every week inside Iran and Iraq. Maybe not Iraq, but definitely in Syria. I don't think Israel's that worried about them in Iraq. But they'll start blowing the daylights out of them in Syria. And that's not going to make Iran feel warm and mushy inside. Now, Iran's been messing with their Indian shipping. Now, India, if they keep that up, India will go in the Persian Gulf, and they will tell Iran they're going to fire on their ships, and they probably will. And if Iran takes their ships out, Modi will probably tell them you can expect 250,000 soldiers at your doorstep, and I'll take all you mullahs and kill you all right in your own country. And Israel would help India. So Iran has to watch itself, or it's going to have India and Israel going after it. Who else would join in? I'm not sure if anybody else. But Netanyahu would devastate India. Iran. They would, what would happen? Now, this is a real fear Iran has. If we go in and start blowing up the oil refinery ports, that's where they take the oil and they load it on the tanker ships, right? We start blowing, what do they got? Probably 2 places like that, 3 tops. One day, we blow them up, right? Okay, they don't have air defenses that are going to stop a stealth F-16 that has the stealth fuselage or an F-35. They're not going to stop it. They're not going to be able to do anything. They're not going to send their fighter jets up in the air to have a dogfight. They won't be able to find them, let alone their planes are junk. Oh, they'll have anti-missile systems they'll launch and stuff like that, and it's not going to do any good. So there's a lot of sanctions on Iran. So you blow up the ports that they offload the oil into the boats, and what do they got to sell? Well, they got really good pistachio nuts. But I mean, how many hundreds of tons of pistachio nuts do you need to run an economy like that? You'd have to make a path of pistachio nuts around the world 20 times. The world's not round. Anyway, what are you going to do with it? I mean, you can't. They don't have, okay? They got natural gas and they got oil. So they can't offload the natural gas, and they can't offload the oil. That's real sanctions. Their economy will shrink by 75%, and then what happens? Revolution. That's it. India would love to fund a revolution in Iran. They could do it. Israel would want to. So, and who else would want to get rid of Iran? I'll tell you right now. All the king dictators of the oil countries. I'll name them for you. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. And Egypt has no love for them. So you can find allies that would help you sink Iran's ship, but they want to make sure Iran is defunct before they do it. So you got to understand behind the scenes, Israel knocking out Hamas, there's a big cry going on, not in the media. Iran may say, if Hamas goes, we're going to war. Okay? And some countries may not want that. I think that's Biden's plan. How the heck does Iran go to war with Israel? There's only one way I can think of. They go into Iraq, and that would be massive military convoys, tanks, armored personnel carriers, trucks, troops, and then they go into Syria. Iraq has no border with Israel. Once they're in Syria, Israel's going to start blowing their trucks up. So how good is that going to work? They'd have to move like you know, 1 or 200,000 soldiers with all the supporting equipment. And how do you do that secretly? You know, even if they built a tunnel that was 60 feet high and 150 feet wide, like a highway underground, they're going to surface inside Syria. Where are you going to put them? I mean, you're going to see them. They're going to need barracks, mess halls, hospitals, warehouses storing ammo, equipment, fuel, trucks, jeeps, this, that. And you can blow that up. So they have their proxies right on Israel's borders. Okay? They got Syria, sort of, kind of. Then they got Hamas and they got Hezbollah. When Hezbollah and Hamas are gone, they're no longer effective fighting proxies. Iran is up the creek without a paddle. And then Netanyahu hates their ever-loving guts. Biden's working with Iran. Netanyahu hates him. Netanyahu will go over there every day and bomb them. Netanyahu will bomb their ships in the Persian Gulf. Netanyahu will bomb their ports. Netanyahu will bomb their so-called nuclear facilities. Netanyahu will bomb their military bases, their headquarters, their everything. He won't bomb the civilians. Netanyahu could cause in a week $2 or $3 billion of damage to Iran. The Iranian ships can't survive against our F-35s. You just fly around and missile attack them and that's it. They're gone. So they lose control of the Persian Gulf. They're all screwed up. So these are the interplay that's going on, and this is why they're trying to stop us from going into Rafah. And they're saying, okay, let Hamas give all the hostages back and we'll force the ceasefire. But they don't understand the Muslim terrorists, and they're not going to go for it. Israel, if there's a ceasefire and Hamas has the hostages, what'll happen a week or two later, Hamas will say, you have hostages, you have 5,000 or 6,000 people in jail, you call terrorists that are just political people trying to rid the opposition out of Palestine. You have no right to keep them in jail. Give us them back and we'll give you your hostages. Biden knows this. So everybody now around here appears to be disjointed. They're not walking in unison and they don't know what they're doing. But the one thing they're all agreed upon is they want to get rid of Israel. That's what they're agreed upon. Okay. Let's see if we got any questions. So I hope I gave you an idea of how confusing everything is here. Not just for you, it's confusing for the people in the world. All right, I'm going to start reporting some of these knuckleheads. You feel free to report them too. I think you can. All right. I got rid of it. All right. Now let's go to some Bible. Let's take a look in Zechariah 12, and we'll debate some ideas and see where we go. All right? So we read in Zechariah 2, Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and Jerusalem. That's the land and the people that are here now. Round about does not include America, Europe, Canada, China, Russia, Brazil, or any of that stuff, okay? And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces. Though all the people of Haaretz, that's the land of Israel, not the earth, I don't believe, be gathered together against it. If it was all the people in the earth gathering together against it, I mean, it could be. That would mean there's not going to be many of the nations left. Now, that's consistent with Jeremiah 30:11, that he will destroy all the nations that he sent Israel captive into, which is about 125 nations. So yes, this is possibly, the word for earth is eretz, okay? And it means sometimes the earth, the world, the whole thing, and sometimes the land of Israel, but it can mean the land in general, gathered together against it. So it doesn't give me the idea that this is just the greater Israel people, though it could be that. But I don't think so, because he's calling us Judah and Jerusalem, one or two verses up, and then now he's saying in the earth. So it's a lot. And the word all is the Hebrew word kol, which means all. The people word is not people, it's heathen. The heathen, the goyim of the earth, gathered together is probably pretty okay. Let's see how Strong's puts it into English. It means to take away or remove, gather for that purpose type of thing. And the word against is 59:21. It's on or upon, they say against. It's not exactly that accurate, but it's not that bad either. In that day, saith, and the word is who, he. Wait a second. It's Yom. In that day, saith Jehovah. Now let's go through the words very carefully here. In that day, that's okay. Saith, and that's Yeah, declare. Okay. Jehovah. And then it says, I will smite. It doesn't say that in the Bible. It says nakah, which means strike or smite. Where did it go? Hold on a minute. Strong's throws this word into English as beat. Okay? So it doesn't say I will beat, it's saying beat. So let's go through it again. In that day declares Jehovah. See, Hebrew's choppy to get it into English. Smite, and then it says every, it doesn't mean every, it's all horses, which is the word sus, which could mean a swift or a swallow bird. So it could be airplanes, vehicles, I don't know, with astonishment. Now, that word Timon, consternation or astonishment. Well, and then it says, and his rider, but the word and his isn't in the text. It means to place upon for riding. It could be a vehicle or an animal. So it's saying astonishment, rider, madness, shigana, which is crazy. And then it says, I will open. See, they make this stuff up in here. What it really says is, pakar, it just says, it's open, but with this really meaning the eyes, which means to open the eyes, you got to turn your face towards. So the and I will isn't in there. So it's a open. Mine eyes is ayin. It just says eyes. Open eyes. Upon is good. Bite Judah, house of Judah. And I will strike or smite all the sus, all the horses or vehicles of the people. And then it says blindness. That could mean a number of things. It could mean if it's an animal, they're blind. If it's jets or vehicles, they can't use their instruments or something. And the governors, that's the chiefs, that's the judges, the two witnesses of Judah. Now this is really interesting. So the chiefs of Judah say, and in heart, say heart, in heart. The inhabitants, now let's get that word. It's got more of a comment. It's Yashab. The dwellers or the remainers in Jerusalem. Then it says, shall be my strength. Well, let's look at this. It's, the word is amtsa, which is basically strength. So he's saying the dwellers Jerusalem, or the remaining dwellers Jerusalem, strength, Yehovah, hosts, Elohim. The remaining inhabitants of Jerusalem, strength, Yehovah, armies, Elohim. So shall be my strength is not, they're adding that in. It appears that he's saying the Yehovah is going to be their strength. It says their God, Okay. So that means they're believers, I guess. Now, let's say that's the case because there's already a temple there. Let's say that the temple, which the next one comes down from heaven, I've covered that many times. If you read Ezekiel 37 very carefully, you'll see that. And this is the house made without hands. So maybe that's why they're there. Maybe that we did have our cities attacked badly and we've been pushed around and we all go to the temple in Jerusalem for safety. Maybe that's what we did. Maybe there was a call for us to do that or something. I don't know. I'm unaware of that. I'm just trying to see how I can explain this. It's hard. Those inhabitants or remaining inhabitants in Jerusalem, strength in Jehovah of hosts, their God. They're getting their strength from God, so I have to say they are believers. Then it says, that day make the governors of Judah, that's the two witnesses running it as judges, like an earth of fire among the wood. Well, who do you know has fire coming out of their mouth? And then he says it a second time because there's two of them. And like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour, or you could even say burn up, all people round about on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem inhabited, let me check this word, dwells, you could easily say Jerusalem remains again where Jerusalem. So it's saying Jerusalem basically is where it is in Jerusalem. It doesn't go anywhere. And then they tell us the Lord also shall save the tents. Well, what it really says is Yasha Jehovah Yasha, which comes from the name Yeshua, to deliver salvation. So it's more or less saying Jehovah delivers salvation, or Jehovah's salvation, the tents of Judah. Now, Yash is the root of Yeshua, so they look upon the Son of Man. That's the deliverance here that I believe he's talking about. And then it says, salvation, tents of Judah were shown, which means first, that the glory, the beauty, the splendor arise, shine, your light has come. Got it? They've seen Yeshua. That's their Yasha, their salvation. Okay? So he's saying the Yasha, the salvation, first to the tents of Judah. This is what he's really saying, not what the King James. See, to translate, if you don't know true doctrine, you can't do it. Of course, doctrine always gets into translations. Jehovah, salvation, tents of Judah were shown first. That the beauty, the splendor of the Beit David, house of David, and the glory or beauty or splendor of the inhabitant. They say glory, it's not the kabod word, it's a different word. The glory of the remainers or the remaining inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify, do not become against or upon Judah. And then he goes on, in that day, Jehovah defend to hedge, build a hedge, wall of fire like hedge, right? Glory of God of Israel. In that day, Jehovah defend or hedge roundabout, I think you could say, roundabout inhabitants or remaining inhabitants, Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day. What it really says is Jerusalem, and then it says feeble that day. Become David, and the house of David, Elohim. And then it says, now, we got to watch this carefully because they don't know what they're doing with the Hebrew, but they're trying to twist it. So, Beit David, then it says Elohim, and then it says angel, which is Malach, which is messenger of Jehovah before them. Well, because it says Elohim, I think it means the glory of God of Israel, Michael, the angel. I don't think it means the two witnesses, but let's try this deeper. By David, Elohim, Moloch, Jehovah, in the face of them. Well, here's what I think is maybe a better way of looking at this, okay? That day, Jehovah defend remaining inhabitants, Jerusalem or inhabitants, and feeble that they be like David and house of David, Elohim. So the house of David will be like Elohim. And then it goes on and says, as the, but that's not in the text, Elohim. And then it says, messenger, Jehovah before them. I guess it does mean Michael. And it shall come to pass. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, there's 6 words here, and it shall come to pass. There's only one Hebrew word, 1961 in Strong's, Hayah, which, gosh, I can't get this right. Okay, come on, stay still. We could say become or come to pass. That day, seek, destroy all goyim, go in or come on or upon Jerusalem. Then the next verse, pour upon by house of David and upon inhabitants of Jerusalem. Spirit of grace and of supplications. They shall look, and that really is 50:27, and it means to look intently. Yeah, they're going to stare, you might say. They shall look, and then it says, see, they say et, okay, shall look upon, it could be towards, unto, upon, it's all going to be okay, upon's all right. Then it says, at, self usually. Look upon self, or we might say me in English, whom pierced and then mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son. But it just says only, mourn for him as only bitterness, him bitterness for Bekor, first fruit of bitterness for first fruit, firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hadad, and the land shall mourn every tribe, or the word is mishbuka, would mean tribe apart, and it names the tribes, and it's basically just who's here now. So now the next thing we'll do is compare this to pieces of let me get rid of the junkers in here. Hold on. They seem to think they're doing a lot of good by going around and preaching their theme. Hang on a second. Okay. I never saw such a bunch of immature. I live in Israel. It's such a bunch of immature people, like children, just running around. Guys, if you can hit the subscribe button and the like button, it helps. Okay, now we'll do Jeremiah 30 and see what we learn. The word that came to Jeremiah from Jehovah, saying, Thus speaketh Jehovah Elohim Yisrael, saying, Write thee all the words that I have spoken thee in a book, for it could mean it's a safer, it could mean a scroll, actually, I believe. For lo, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will bring again the captivity. That's the second Exodus of my people, Israel and Judah. Israel's the 10 tribes, the so-called lost tribes, and Judah is basically Judah and Levi. So you could say Levi is Judah's Levites at that time, well, until the 10 tribes come. Saith Jehovah, although Benjamin's here too, that's not good phraseology, but Judah is comprised of the tribes of Judah and Levi. That's a better way of putting it. I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. And these are the words that Jehovah spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. And that's for all 12 tribes. For thus saith Jehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling and of fear, and not of peace. This is not Ezekiel 38:39. Ask you now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, that would basically be like his legs on his loins, as a woman in travail. And all faces are, no, I guess it's the lower abdomen, probably. As a woman in travail, that's the woman's giving birth at this point. The baby's coming out. That's the end of the birth pang. It leads to the travail, the giving birth. And all faces, and that's correct, panim, faces, are turned into paleness. Well, the blood's probably rushing into their lower abdomen, and their faces are white because this fear is so bad. Alas, for that day is gadol, great, or high, or great, so that none is like it. It is even the time, and that word time is at which would be used to now or when. Is even the is not in the text. They just add those words in. So it's 6256, which can mean time or when, which is much like saying time. So we could say time, Yaakov, and the word trouble is surah. Surah is in Hebrew. Trouble, distress, trouble. But he shall be saved. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out of 6, 7. That's 7 words for one Hebrew word, which is Yasha, which is the base of Yeshua or Yahshua. So salvation is really what this is what's saying. So he's saying salvation, saved out of it. Well, we say saved to mean salvation, don't we? And that's kind of what this is saying, salvation out of it. For it shall come to pass, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words for one word in Hebrew, which is hayad, to become. That day, saith Jehovah of armies, break yoke off thy neck, burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. See, I believe the yoke of the government and the rabbis and all that has already been removed. This is the yoke of the strangers, the foreigners like Biden and the EU and the UN. This is their yoke is being broken. But shall serve Jehovah Elohim and David Hamelech, whom I raise up unto him. The anointed prince will be from the line of David, not literally David. David died once. The anointed prince gets cut off in Daniel 9. So David couldn't die again because it's elected unto man to die only once. Okay, moving along. Neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will Yasha, salvation from afar, or from or out of remote or distant places. That's your second Exodus. So he's saying, I will save thee from afar, but he's saying, I'll Yasha you. Okay, that's not the same sense of the word. That's the root of Yeshua. Free, safe, delivered. Save you from what? Second death, I guess. Yasha from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And then it says, in Yaakov, Shub, return or turn back. It really means turn back, come back to Israel. That's the tribes of Israel, all of the 12. Yaakov turned back. And then it says, Shakal, be quiet or tranquil. And none shall make him afraid. So the word for none is aim. Nothing. It's like a bagel hole. It's a nothing. So no one or nothing get him afraid or trembling. Now, why? They're going to arise, shine. They're going to shine. They're going to have eternal life. For now it says, Ani with thee, saith Jehovah to Yasha thee. So you got to get to this word here. It also can mean give you the victory. Yasha thee, though I make a full end, that's a completion, or termination, better. Though I make a termination of all goyim, which would mean in this case nations, because if we're talking individual people, how could he scatter you into individual people? So it's the heathen nations that he has scattered, and that is poots and scattered. Yet will I not make a full termination of you, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. For thus saith Jehovah, thy bruise is incurable, and thy wound is grievous. There is none to plead thy cause, that thou may be bound up. Thou hast no healing medicines. All thy lovers have forgotten thee. They seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one. For the multitude of thine iniquity, thy lawlessness, because that's the same kind of lawlessness that the church practices, but worse with the church, because thy sins were increased. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable. For the multitude of thy lawlessness, or iniquity, because thy sins were increased, I have done these things unto thee. Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And they that spoil thee shall be spoiled, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. So this is setting Israel up as the head of all the nations. After Jacob's trouble, which is more than likely Zechariah 12:10. He shall be saved out of it. Now, Ezekiel 38:39, yeah, the elect are saved out of it, but the others are getting raped and ripped off, and they go into captivity. Half of Jerusalem goes into captivity. It doesn't quite lend itself to that theme, where in Zechariah 12, the bad ones apparently are already gone, cut off, okay, in Israel, and the surrounding nations come to attack us, and the two witnesses take them out. Now, the two witnesses are already portrayed as the chiefs, or the judges, the governors of Israel, of Judah. So that means they've been working for a while. So I think Ezekiel 34 has already happened, and I think we have the temple, or at least the tabernacle at that time, and we're doing offerings. Two witnesses are doing miracles. And the nations have been surrounding us, have been inspired by Satan to go get us. At this point, Satan's so desperate, all bets are off. He's not using any discretion. Go lay a siege to them and go get them. And then God shows the world what happens when you do that, and the two witnesses burn them up all around. Millions and millions going to go up in smoke, literally. And then the enemies nearby are gone. The nations are completely freaked out. They've probably suffered a lot of damage. Darkness has covered the earth. Maybe they've all joined in, or many have joined in to attack us, and they're coming to attack us, and they got destroyed. But then we got to deal with the fact that the kings are bringing the children of Israel back as an offering unto the Lord with gold and silver. So there's still kings running around. So Jeremiah 30 could also be maybe some of it fulfilled for Zechariah 12, and maybe other pieces fulfilled in Gog and Magog. For I will restore health unto thee, will heal. Now, the word for health is arukah, which is restoration, to soundness. Okay, now the other word for health, will heal rather, is 7495, and that's Rapha, to make healthful. Could mean restored. Heal thee in thy wounds. The heal word is Rapha, like I said. It's more or less restoring the soundness of wounds, and that's blows, the hits, the blows. Because they called thee an outcast, saying, This is Zion, whom no one seeketh after. Thus saith Jehovah, behold. Behold, bring again captivity of Yaakov's tents. And this is your second Exodus. This is after Zechariah 12. See, it bounces around, talks about some events in different, kind of out of sequence. And have mercy on his dwelling places, and the city builded upon her own heap. And it probably means continue on her own heap. After the manner thereof. And out of them shall proceed thanksgiving, I'm sure, and the voice of them that make merry, and I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. I will glorify them, and they shall not be small. That means insignificant, really. Their children also shall be as aforetime. Okay? And their congregation, and that word is Adar, Means a congregation. Congregation established before me, punish all that oppress them. See, so this would mean we're already into redemption. So I think Zechariah 12:10 is right at the end of recompenses, or maybe it's the transition day from the year of recompenses into the year of redemption. That's a decent explanation, I think, with the light I have now. And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governors shall proceed, their chief, their judge shall proceed from the midst of them. So the two witnesses are from Israel. And I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. For who is this that engaged his heart to approach unto me, saith Jehovah? It's probably the two witnesses. It could be the people of Israel at large, because they're redeemed. So take your pick on that one. And you shall be my people. Let's see if I can focus better on this. Does it? The nobles shall be themselves, the governors shall proceed from them, and I will cause to draw near, shall approach unto me. Who is this? Yeah, I think it's restored Israel. It's approaching at large, yeah. And you shall be my people, and I will be your God. So sure, they could all approach him. Behold, the whirlwind of Jehovah goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. That's a storm or a tempest or a whirlwind. The fierce anger of Jehovah shall not return until he have done it. Okay. Let me check my notes, see what else I got to cover. See, it could be that Elijah has the temple there and he's working with the people, and the nations are just furious and they come to attack. That's could be what it is. So I'm pretty sure Zechariah 12 is the destruction of the surrounding nations plus those that joined in. However many other nations join in with that. It could be many, I don't know. So the kings bringing the Israelites back from the nations would mean that the Israelites were in these nations when they got destroyed. That doesn't ring entirely good to me. Could be, but I think that's not the case, because then they wouldn't be kings, a king of nothing. So I think that these nations getting destroyed may not happen until Gog and Magog. There has to be somebody left for Gog and Magog. Now, with Moses, Aaron, and Pharaoh, Pharaoh didn't want to let the people go and serve their God. So Moses and Aaron had to do a series of plagues or hits. It's really called smites or hits, boom, boom. And the Israelites did come out of Egypt, but Egypt was destroyed when they left, yet they were able to rebuild and get it back. And the military got killed in the Red Sea, which comes up a lot today. So it could be that the people are distributed. It says the nations he sent the 12 tribes into captivity, and it could be that they don't want to let them go back to Israel. And the two witnesses show up and fix that, because it says you will not go out with haste. Well, after the two witnesses come over there and they say, hey, king, I ain't going to say live forever, my king. That ain't happening. What I'm going to tell you is there's two new sheriffs in your country, Elijah and John, and, you're going to listen to us, and we're going to just slowly, we're just going to rapidly, methodically destroy your country. Okay? Have a little hail. Have some frogs, or let's say we don't use frogs. What else could we use? Rats. That's a good one. There shall be rats in all your houses, but not in the house of the Israelites. That could be done. Snakes. What else would be ugly for them? Oh, I don't know. They could dream stuff up. Kangaroos. They stand up on the tail and kick you, Ostriches, how mean they can be. You can get all kinds of creativity. You can, of course, stop the rain, but that's a slow boat. You can not enable them to have light in their houses. You could give them boils, you could give them hemorrhoids, you could give them blindness, you can give them whatever. Until they say, take your people and go, then you go. But does that explain the king's bringing them back? Maybe the two witnesses tell him, you carry him back, and then you could stay in Israel because your land's destroyed now. You're the king of nothing. Like Pharaoh was the Pharaoh of nothing. He didn't even have an army when it was over with, right? Getting a picture how it could happen? I don't think the two witnesses are going to sit there and dilly-dally very long with them. You could put the plagues on them every few hours if you were in a hurry. The boils would be painful, right? You can give them hemorrhoids. They wouldn't enjoy that. You could cut their ability to have light off. You could put blindness on them. If you give them rats, you're going to probably make it hard for the Israelites too. So you could just say that, the Israelites are not blind, they're not this, they're not that, just you. And just keep stacking it up till they cave in. How long would that take? You could put fire on them. Could God stop all the cars from working in a given country? Sure. So the two witnesses just do that. Stop all the planes from flying, the guns from shooting. Yeah, he could do it. There's a lot of things they could do. They can put whatever plagues on the country whenever they want to, in any degree they want to. There's indications in prophecy that they're not going to let them go. That's one way to stop end times as Satan gets more and more desperate. Now we need to talk about the poor people, the downtrodden, the feeble, left in Zechariah 12. Is it possible that, like when the Babylonians came, they killed them and took Israelites captive? Well, they already went on a voluntary exodus to Babylon, and they killed the ones that were in Babylon, but they left the poor and downtrodden there to be gardeners and caretakers. But does that lend itself to the 2/3 cut off and all that? I don't think so. Why? They didn't leave a third of them there, and it says the third that are left there will be, tried like gold and silver and raised up. Well, that could mean that still would be a fit. It could be, but I don't see the Israelites going into captivity like here at this. I don't see that. That's Gog and Magog, and just from Jerusalem. So I'm not seeing this. I don't think so. I don't think so. See, the ones that are poor and downtrodden are the ones that have not sold out to Satan. You ain't going to be wealthy in this world unless you're with Satan, or, you're just, if you're just a neutral, which there doesn't exist because you're either for him or against him. So if you're not for Yeshua, you're really for Satan. So he lets those people have money too, but not anywhere near what he gives to those that are openly serving him. So would it happen like that? I have to leave the door open for that, but not that likely, but it could be. Let's pray that God gives us the insight on that. I don't know. I think it's more like the two witnesses are going to get rid of these bad ones, and God will do it, and I don't know exactly how. We're not told with any great precision. The sword is a real possibility. I don't know. So before I forget, keep the prayers going for Beulah. She's eating quite a lot. She runs in the yard now full speed, but she keeps drinking excessive amounts of water, and the vet's worried that it could have some sort of renal failure problem. So pray for healing and health for Beulah the dog, please. Okay? She's recovering very nicely from the surgery. Very nicely. Okay, prayer requests. We got one for EB. Echo Bravo EB. Echo Bravo. Pray for the for strength and energy and appetite to return. This is recovering from COVID, which happened, but now this person doesn't have any desire to eat and is just tired and weak all the time, probably from not eating. So pray for EB, Echo Bravo, for strength, energy, and for the appetite to return. Now let's go to Daniel 9:25, I think, and take a quick look there. I've covered this before, And I just want to bring it up again. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the anointed prince shall be 7 weeks. Well, let's see what it really is saying. I don't know. 7. I have to go to the Hebrew and see what it really says. Hold on. You can't tell anything from the Greek. Okay, it says the bear, which is saying return, build, return and build Jerusalem I don't know, even until anointed Nagad, anointed prince, and then it says 70. It doesn't say Shaver, it says Shavim. It says 70 Shavua. 77s. That's what it says. 77s. Oh. Anointed prince 70. And then it says 7 and 70. Boy, it's so crude. 70 Shashim, which is 60 Yishnaim 2, 62 return build street Sharut. Trench or something. Distress. Hot time. Hot time is 2. What is this? Time. Well, my point here, going back to English, is this. From the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the anointed prince, there shall be 77 and then 62. So the countdown starts when the command goes out to restore and build Jerusalem. This is when I believe the start of the countdown is, which would be probably after Zechariah 12, right away, or pretty quickly. This is when I think the second 70 begins. If you don't know what I'm talking about, in Daniel 24, it does not say 70 weeks. It says 70 70s are determined upon thy people, thy holy city, to finish the transgression, and that's for Israel, and to make an end of sins. And if you're a believer in Yeshua HaMashiach, you of course are in Israel. And to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for lawlessness, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and seal up the vision and prophecy, and anoint the most holy. This would mean the return of Yeshua with New Jerusalem. So there's the second 70. The first 70 was the Babylonian captivity, and Daniel was in that. And then this is the next 70. And I think we get the timing beginning here, no therefore understand, from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem to the anointed prince. So saying from the time the commandment goes out, there's going to be 62 weeks or something, and the street will be built again, and the wall even with troublous times. And after 62 weeks or 62 sevens, the anointed will be cut off. That's the anointed prince in the temple from the line of David, but not for himself. And the people of, this is another prince, Nagid again is the word, leader, or another prince shall come, and then it says, shall destroy the city. Well, the word for destroy is to corrupt or defile it. He doesn't destroy, he corrupt. King James is so bad. They're all bad, all the English translations. So corrupt or defile the city, and the word for city is not exactly city. Well, let's see. Hold on, it might be. Yeah, it could be city or encampment. Yeah. Destroy the encampment and the sanctuary, which is the Kodesh, which means holy. And the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war do desolations are determined. That's the temple will be not doing the offerings and the sacrifices, and the glory God of Israel will be out of the temple until the war is finished. Then it goes on, it says, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, 1/7. The word for week here is a 7. And in the midst of those 7, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. So that's the sacrifices are not operating, and that's because the glory God of Israel left. And for the overspreading of abominations, that's when they set up the image that provoketh the jealousy, which you should read about in Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11, and read about this in Zechariah 14, and of course the whole book of Joel and Ezekiel 38 and 39. It's all the same event. He shall make it desolate with even until the consummation, and that word is the completion or the termination. and the determined, what's destined to be, shall be poured upon the desolate, the place, the temple. Okay. So I believe I covered what I intended to cover today. And let me see if I got questions. And I welcome questions, as long as they're not ridiculous, stupid insults. All right. So I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife. Pray for our peace, safety, protection, and joy, healing. Please keep the prayers coming for Beulah, that she recovers with whatever it is that's making her drink excessive amounts of water. Pray for Beulah, the dog, that she recovers, gets healed from whatever is making her drink excessive amounts of water. Thank you for that. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and pray I get better videos. So today was a little different. I was trying to do sounding board and show you different possibilities, what can be, what may not be, what might be, so you could see the mechanisms of how you try to narrow down what really is going to happen and what's not. So some of these things are very hard, and we can't 100% get to the bottom of them right away. So we pray that the Lord shows us how to get there, or teaches us what the truth is, and that's what we should be doing. And then we'll get it. All right. So I hope you got something out of this, and I'll keep you informed. Please subscribe and click the like button. Not too much to ask. Thank you for the few of you that are giving offerings, and I appreciate that. And I guess I'm out. I got my email address up there in the chat. I got offering information also in the description box. You could ask me questions, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out. Thank you. My X, there we go.